Were you a filmmaker before you started with Dr. Marty as your vet? Because she's had dogs with Dr. Marty for how many years?
For 27 years, maybe 28. Yeah. And no, I wasn't a filmmaker when I first started going to him. I was, goodness, I had just moved out from the city, and I had a dog that I had had for a few years, and this dog had been chronically ill. She was 6 years old and she was dying. There was no vet that could save her. New York, Connecticut, I live in Connecticut now. And somebody said, you should go see this veterinarian named Marty Goldstein. And I said, I don't know if she'll make it to Marty. I mean, she was that sick. It was Coco, because a friend of mine here knew this dog. And I got her there, and he said, you've just been putting her on steroids and antibiotics all her life, and clearly it's not working. I mean, the dog was dying. And he said, we're going to take her off of them, put her on some supplements, do my program. And everything he said resonated as such a truth. You know, after I'd been through all this and angst out, and all of a sudden I was just very calm. I thought, this is the right way. And sure enough, she detoxed. She became like a puppy again. She lived 6 more years, so she lived to 12. And then I was sold. I was his client, you know, up until now.
And then when did you become a filmmaker?
I became a filmmaker in 2000. Well, I started in 2008, and I did a film called Buck, which played out here at some point, if any of y'all are horse people. So that is when I became a filmmaker.
All right, so when you started out to make this film, you'd already been making some films, and you had been involved with Dr. Marty for a long time. So did you all along think, I'd like to make a film about Dr. Marty? Was that
As you know, I had never made a film when I made Buck. It just was something I was passionate about. So I made the film, and I thought, that's it. And then everybody said, what do you want to do now? And I thought, well, similarly to Buck, I wanted to make a film about this guy because I'm passionate about animals and how they're treated, and I thought Buck was doing something right with horses, and I thought that the quality of life of my dogs were so superior than what they had been in the past that I immediately thought of Marty, and he said he would, but our timing just kept being off to get this together, and then finally 3 years ago we started making the film.
And it took how many years altogether to shoot and edit?
It took 3 years, and you know, we premiered at Tribeca this past April. So it's been in festivals. It's going to be coming out to theaters in 2020. So we hope that you'll tell your friends. And in March of 2020, it'll be in theaters. It'll be running in theaters through the summer, and then it'll be streaming and on DVD. So
awesome.
Do look for it. Good Christmas present next year.
Exactly. So when you set out to do it, did you go into so he didn't leave to go on his educational tour until after this thing was over, until after you were done shooting, right?
Right. Well, he's still actually at the clinic. This is his last year because he stayed on for 2 more years. He sold the practice to Dr. Jenna, but he's writing his second book, and he is traveling and doing a lot of talking. This weekend he's in Nashville. He was going to come here, but he's in Nashville speaking down there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you set out to do it, did you set out with the idea of structuring it around certain cases like Waffles and Mulligan and Scooby? Or did that come to you as you were shooting?
Yeah, we kind of trolled. Because you have to, I mean, this is a real clinic. Dogs are really sick. They come in, you don't know when your dog's not, you can't cast that. So we literally spent several weeks just filming every appointment that was coming in. If it sounded interesting or like a case that people would be interested in, you know, things like kidney disease, it's very similar with people. There's a lot of kidney issues going on, and there's a lot of autoimmune things and a lot of cancer. So I was trying to find things that, people would relate to with their own dogs, but also with their own health. And so we just, you know, with Waffles, we happened to be there the first day he came in. There were many interesting stories that we couldn't tell them all, or we didn't have the complete story, you know, or we missed an appointment, and so we kind of missed the wrap up, so it was a very difficult movie to shoot. because it was totally, just flying blind every day.
Right. Well, I thought it was among many effective parts of the film in the opening sequence when there's sort of following around, tracking through the clinic, and there's a lot of sort of overlay of different cases being talked about, and you see all the busyness of that clinic. Very effective way to bring everybody into sort of the energy of the place and what's going on there, and right away talking about the different cases and how he's going to treat them and what's going on. So that was great. But then if you pick someone like Waffles, or a dog like Waffles, then you have to have access to the family and to the off-clinic footage as well. So how is that negotiated? For that and for Mulligan and for Scooby and so forth.
Yeah, it was amazing. It always is amazing to me that people will let you film them, and especially when they're in a very emotional place, and you walk up to them and just say, we're making a documentary here, and do you mind, and can we put a mic on you, because you have to kind of put those little tiny lavs. And we had an amazing sound person. His name's Brian Fish, and he's my favorite guy to work with sound, and he's because he wanted to get every word. I mean, this was a very emotional thing, and people just trusted us. I think they knew, because I was often crying with them. They knew that we were very passionate about it. They were very excited to also share this type of medicine, because they had been to a lot of places too. It wasn't just my story, that we saw it again and again. They would walk in and they would say, this place is so different. The energy's different. Like, these people want the dog to go home with me. They don't want to keep it here, for days and days. I mean, they truly believe that your pet, the emotional support of going home, even if they've been through surgery, if they can get the dog home and even get him back the next day, they would prefer the dog go and be with the owner. So it's sort of the full package of healing. And people loved that, and they trusted us, and remarkably, they just would let us come to their house and film them and all these things. And it was like we weren't there. They were having these conversations, because I thought, is it going to be awkward? We're in these small rooms. Are they going to be acting? But trust me, these people weren't acting. They were just right there. The doctors were right there. It was quite remarkable.
Right. In some ways, perhaps because of that vulnerability, it's like, okay, it's okay to do this, because that's not the focus. The focus is on the dog and on the experience of it. The emotionality is so strong. And in some ways, it also honors the patient. It honors the pet to show the lengths they're going to and how they're trying to do this, to follow that struggle, I think, which is great. It's because to have access to that is to see how real this is for them. And the overlap to, well, I wanted to ask you another question, first of all, about shooting. So a lot of times you're shooting at dog level. So how is that done?
Well,
little tracking shots.
It was
down low.
Right, and sometimes they were just down low. They would have these contraptions around them that they could do it. But the other thing about being able to film this movie, I don't think most people could have done it, because we really were in and out of there for 3 years. They gave us a key to the place. That's how much they trusted us, and the doctors trusted us. And the doctors, they're so trained in this method, and it's very rare. You're not going to find many clinics like this. You'll find some that do acupuncture and this and that, but to have the knowledge of supplements and stuff. And so they allowed us to be there for that long. And when I first went, the rooms were all painted this sickly yellow color, which, is fine. But if you're I took some test shots, and everybody looked sick. I mean, it was this yellow, and then the people were kind of like, you looked yellow, the dogs looked yellow. And I said, can I paint the place? And they said, okay. So we painted it blue, because the blue color was much prettier to skin tones and stuff. And then I brought in my DP, and he said, could we have Meg's office? It has a window in it. The light's so much better. So then she literally moved out of her office, and we created the room that you see a lot, which is the big room, as an appointment room. And we made this little wall, and we cut a hole out, and you could put the wall back together if you wanted to, but the guys would be on the floor and they could shoot through it. And a lot of times the dogs would try to come through the hole, so sometimes that didn't work. But we went to great lengths to try to make it look good too, just because we knew it'd be there a long time. And there's nothing worse than going in to look at your dailies and just going, it's fluorescent lighting. A lot of my films were shot outside. We did Buck and we did Unbranded and The River and the Wall, and there are these gorgeous movies all shot outside. You don't need to worry about lighting, but fluorescent lights, we were up there changing bulbs and stuff. So anyway, that's your technical.
No, I appreciate that, and we do have somebody here who knows a lot about color theory, and I'm surprised that the doctor didn't know something that I read about years ago, which is that certain colors, like the blues and the greens, are healing colors, which is the explanation for why scrubs are in those colors and so forth. So with you painting the walls blue actually made it a more healing environment, so you're participating in what's going on there. So that's a good thing.
Good.
And the thing that's sort of under the radar in this, but it comes out when I think it was maybe Mulligan's owner. I think it's Mulligan's owner, changes her diet and changes her and has less anxiety and has a better quality of life and is feeling better about everything. So, but the applications to human care, whether it's cancer, which is all the rage now, is about immunotherapy and things to get the body to fight cancer on its own, and using conventional medicine, Western medicine, as well as Eastern and holistic medicine, and diet, which we also have some people here that are specialists in that. So the wider applications of what he's doing is a societal thing that's changing a little bit, and anything that can do that for pets and quality of life, as the doctor says. There's wellness, quality usually accompanied by quantity, which is a good thing. So a magnificent film. So just before I turn it over to see if there's any questions, I wanted to ask you about the film that's showing tomorrow in Bay Street, Rewind. What's that about?
Yes, there's I was the executive producer of a film called Rewind, which it's actually based on a famous story. There was a young film team from Montana that sent me this film when I was making this film, which normally if you're directing, you never take on another film, but I watched it. I thought I'd watch 10 minutes and say, no, I really don't have time, and just be polite. But when I started watching it, it was jaw-dropping, and I thought, for the first time, and luckily my family hadn't been touched by this personally, but it is about child sexual abuse. And it's this man who's now 30 telling his story and interviewing his whole family. And there's a ton of archival footage from when he was a child. And so, unlike any film I'd ever seen, it made me truly understand how that happened. And 90% of abuse happens with someone you know, a family friend, a family member. And it's almost like a thriller. I mean, I hate to say that, and I'm not saying that in a trite way, but it plays in a very different way, I think, and I think it's such an important film. So I took that on too while I was making this film.
You said you had 4 films this year? 4 films in 1 year?
We have 4 films. Well, we had The River and the Wall and For the Birds, that's now on Netflix, and those films are out, but they just came out this year, and then we have Rewind and the Dog Doc that did festivals this year, and they're going to both come out in 2020.
Well, that's fantastic. That's very prolific
we've had
indeed.
A good year.
Do we have anybody here that has any questions for the somewhat veterinarian but also filmmaker? Anyone? Well, thank you so much for staying and hanging out for the film, and I hope that you'll come and see Rewind tomorrow in Sag Harbor and some of the other films.
It's at noon.
It's at noon tomorrow. There you go. So thank you so much, Cindy. It was great. Beautiful film.
Thank you all for coming out on a Sunday night. I so appreciate it.